My name is Asma and I'm 30 years old. I wish to share with you a tale of a world I was drawn into against my will. I lived in France with my family, and every summer I visited Marrakech, my city of origin. Our fortunate circumstances stirred envy among some relatives, who seemed to wish our blessings would vanish. During those summers in Morocco, we resided in a building shared with my grandparents, uncle, and his family. I was particularly close to my cousin Halima, sharing every detail of my life with her. One childhood incident, however, always seemed inexplicable. We were secluded in a room, the door shut to avoid disturbing the adults. Abruptly, Halima paused, untied a red scarf from her doll, and fixed me with a vacant stare. Fear crept in as I turned to the door, only to feel something constricting my neck. Halima had looped the scarf around my throat. Initially, her smile tricked me into believing it was playful, but the tightening scarf soon blurred my vision. Suddenly, Halima's voice changed, deepening as she spoke with immense tone. "You're not going to see tomorrow." Her words chillingly out of character. This terrifying transformation lasted until her brother burst into the room and saved me from whatever that was. In fact, Halima started acting strange before that incident. I noticed a profound change in her that I can trace back to when her parents abruptly left a house they had rented for only 2 months. No one understood their sudden departure. They offered no explanations, but it was clear something had altered within the family. From that time, Halima seemed to be drawn into another realm. She would sit silently, staring vacantly as though the darkness in her eyes was an abyss. Her lips moved as if she was speaking, yet no words came out. It was as if unseen forces were pulling her into an invisible world. Her mother exhibited changes too, with rumors in the community suggesting she had turned to witchcraft, possibly casting spells on her husband. One day I made a grave mistake by confiding in Halima about Adnan, the man I had been dating for 4 years and hoped to marry. Her response was a malicious smile as she repeatedly suggested, "Cast a spell on him if you don't want to die single." Despite my protests that such acts were unforgivable sin, I foolishly sent her our photos, ignorant that they could be used in witchcraft. As we grew older, Halima often vanished from her home in the mornings and wouldn't return until evening. I questioned her about these disappearances. She reluctantly admitted to spending her days in the village of Tamslouat, about 20 kilometers southeast of Marrakech, a place shrouded in mystery. And whenever I questioned her about what she was doing there, she would look at me with a smile that would frighten me. Then I wouldn't ask no more. A year after these mysterious disappearances began, our family vacationed in Morocco. This trip would alter my life irrevocably. Halima's mother, Rahma, invited us over for lunch. Afterwards, Halima presented me with a date-filled cake and said, "You know how sweet things feel after a salty meal?" But she refused to eat any herself. Caught in the awkwardness of the moment, I ate it. Later, she expressed an unusual interest in my sweater and insisted on taking it unwashed. I refused her request because it is commonly known that unwashed clothes are used in witchcraft. A week into our stay in Morocco, my suffering truly began. One night, I was gripped by huge pain, as if a hand was clenching my bowels, making it impossible to breathe. I was rushed to a hospital where they performed a stomach wash. It provided temporary relief, but it was merely the beginning of my troubles. Halima visited me soon after, feigning concern with the question, "What happened? Did you eat something bad?" Her mother joined with the sympathetic tone, "Oh, poor girl, let me bring you something to eat." She returned with a bowl of soup and watched me intently until I drank every last spoonful. That night, I could not fall asleep. While I was trying to find my way to trance, I felt as if my feet were bound. I tried to move them to no avail. When I raised my head to look, I saw an old woman with features so bizarre sitting ominously on my feet. I was paralyzed with fear, unable to scream or move. The woman sat motionless, as if aware that my efforts were futile. I do not know how morning came. I regained movement in my feet, but they throbbed with severe pain, making walking a torturous endeavor. Overwhelmed by despair, I spent the entire day weeping in my room, unable to articulate my anguish even to my grandmother, who was a genuinely sympathetic person. I tried to talk to my boyfriend, but he wouldn't pick up my calls. Once I felt somewhat better, I joined my family in the living room. Both my aunt and her daughter seemed displeased to see me out of my room. They solemnly informed my mother that I needed to consult a healer. I understood their coded language. They were suggesting a witch. "To persuade me," my cousin said. "He is not answering you, is he?" "I know. That is because you're sick. Men like their women strong." I did not know what she was talking about. And if she was referring to Adnan, it would be very unreasonable, because I hadn't told her that he stopped talking to me. I was in a state of fear and confusion after hearing this. In my vulnerable state, I reluctantly agreed to meet the healer, who was actually a Shuwafa. We had to take a taxi, but not the beige ones from Marrakech that only drive within the city. We needed the light blue ones that traveled to the nearby villages. The welcome sign read Tamsluht, but the M in Arabic alphabet was half erased. Halima walked confidently through the village, as if she could navigate it with her eyes closed. As we approached the witch's dwelling, Halima said, "We've arrived. Behave yourself. I bet she already knows we're here." Without knocking, the door creaked open, as if inviting us to push it wider. A suffocating anxiety overwhelmed me, and I begged to turn back. My cousin dismissed me sharply. "Stop acting like a child. I've arranged this appointment, and you're not backing out at the entrance." We walked in, and it became even harder to breathe, as the fear mixed with the dampness and the darkness of the house. There was a dim light in one of the rooms, and through the door I could see shadows playing on the wall. We approached the room slowly, and I realized the source of the light was a brazier with a fire, explaining the dancing shades. The witch was barely visible in the dark, but with a movement of her head, I understood that she was inviting us to sit. My cousin remained silent. I sat before the witch, who immediately demanded the names of my mother and me. I fabricated Selma and Kautar, because I heard from some friends before that the Shuwafa should never know the name of your mother, or she can do bad things to you. She paused for what felt like a minute, and her penetrating gaze suggested she saw through the lie. After a tense moment, my cousin interjected, "Forgive her. She's new to this. She will learn." Without uttering a word, the witch snipped a lock of my hair and cast it into the brazier. That's when I noticed another figure beside her, unclear if she had been there all along or had appeared mysteriously. The dim lighting made it hard to discern her features, but her eyes were stark white, and a black tongue protruded grotesquely from her mouth. My terror erupted into screams. Amidst my hysteria, the witch turned to my cousin with a knowing smile and remarked, "I told you. You see,